This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 20.
Quorum, so we're going straight into the briefing, departmental briefing, which I refer members to page 24 of the pack and 27 of their papers packed. Advise members, and Tracy Russell now brief the committee. Good morning. I want to welcome you here this morning, Deborah McNeil. You're no stranger, and here is your last briefing.
Yes.
Yeah. John Irving and Stuart Barnes, and make a presentation, and it's been answered, and we'll have follow up with questions.
Okay, thank you. Chair, I'll just make a couple of opening remarks in relation to the Department's January monitoring round position. The January monitoring round position in the paper before you is reflective of the one that will go to the DFP on the 2nd of January. Obviously, because of the Christmas period, there is a bit of a time period between today's figures and the 2nd of January. So we will, as a department, keep alert to anything that might change, and if there are any significant changes to our position between now and the 2nd of January, we will advise the committee if there are any significant changes. In terms of the paper, the issues in the paper, the committee will be familiar with. The issues that we come forward to you with at most monitoring rounds. So just going through the sort of the four key areas. In terms of the reduced requirements coming through, the reduced requirements total 4.6 million. And again, they're a result of the receipt of EU funding, so relating to the A8, the A2 and the Belfast Transport Hub. So far this year, that means that the Department has put back to the Executive 12.6 million as a result of securing EU funding, and it allows the Executive to allocate that across the block as it sees fit. In terms of our bids, we have 3 other resource bids and 1 capital bid. In terms of the most significant bid, that we have is for 18 million in respect to the release of value from Belfast Harbour Commissioners. You will be familiar with the background to this. It relates to the 20 million of income in terms of the expectation that 20 million cash would come into the department last year and this year from Belfast Harbour Commissioners. And you'll be familiar with the Budget Review Group work, whereby instead of getting the cash in, there's over £40 million worth release of value projects being taken forward. But it does leave the department in a very difficult position because we can't score that in our budget against an income line. So in terms of the department's position at the minute, last year in 2013-14, the Executive agreed that the 20 million should be funded in year monitoring. Again, the BRG in September recommended that again it should be considered at October monitoring. But obviously this year we're in unprecedented territory in terms of the difficulties and the pressures facing the Executive on the resource front. So as things stand, that bid hasn't been met this year, and we have effectively a £20 million gap in our budget. We have identified 1.8 million of resource measures to sort of try to mitigate that. And you'll see that there's also a reference to an extremist taking £5 million off TransLink as another means of bringing that £20 million pressure down. The Minister is very clear that he believes this to be an Executive commitment and an Executive pressure, and he raised the issue again at the Executive meeting last week. And as a result, we are putting a bid forward for £18 million at this time. In terms of our second resource bid, it's for roads, bridges, operations and maintenance, and effectively this would allow us to bring in some external contractor support. You'll be aware, obviously, that we've had to pause on external contractor work because of other pressures earlier this year and the budget reductions applied. So this would allow some more, effectively increase our capacity this year to undertake work on roads and footway repairs. In terms of our third bid, it's for street lighting repairs. You'll obviously be aware of the issue in relation to street light repairs, and indeed there was an item on the news this morning in relation to this. We're bidding for 2 million for street lighting repairs, and this would allow us to start to address and bring in external contractor resource to start to further address the street lighting outages. In terms of our capital bid, again another familiar area, we're bidding for £9 million structural maintenance at this time of the year, and again that would allow us to address some of the issues that we're facing on the road maintenance area. As you'll know, there's if we get this should take our funding this year to just under 100 million. That would compare with sort of expenditure, which was record levels last year of 130 million, but it would take us to around just short of 100 million this year if we were able to get that. So, I mean, it's a very short paper this time round in terms of the issues, although the release of value obviously is our most significant issue at this point in time, and certainly it's the one that the Minister has been engaging directly with the Finance Minister on, and also engaging directly with the Executive on.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Any of the two men want to say anything? No? Fine. Okay. Just first of all, Deborah, about the road maintenance, and I know it's a big issue in rural areas, and how much did you say that we're going to get, and that would need to be spent between now and the end of the financial year?
In terms of road maintenance, it falls into two categories, resource and capital, in terms of the road maintenance budget. So our bid for resource to allow us to reinstate the external contractor work would be 3.2 million on the resource front and 9 million on the capital front. And if you take the combined resource and capital funding together into what would be the structural maintenance total budget, that total budget this year would go to about 100 million if these bids were successful.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring members in and come back round. David?
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you. If you were to get the bids, what effect will they have on the 4.4% budget reduction?
In terms of the 4.4% budget reduction, about 7 million of that, in terms of the actions we had to take, related to the two areas that have been where the external contractor work stopped. 7 million of it related to roads and bridges and street lighting. So in essence, this is a bid effectively for 5.2 million against what was a cut of 7.
So what percentage, what happens to the 4.4% budget reduction that you're talking about if you got these bids?
Probably go down to about 3.5. I haven't obviously worked that out for it,
Okay.
roughly.
I couldn't work that out this time of the morning, but well done, Deborah. When you say mitigate the pressure as agreed, 1.8 million of resource measures, what does staffing savings entail? Is that job losses?
It's effectively, as you know, in terms of the earlier reductions that we've had to make as part of the 15 million, we've had to, all but essential posts, if you like, have had to stall or be paused. So there has been downward pressure across the department. This would effectively be a freeze on any recruitment and promotions in the department, and also any remaining temporary workers would reduce, and there may be only one or two who are essential.
Has anybody been losing their job between now and Christmas or after Christmas?
There's a possibility that temporary worker contracts would end sooner than expected.
How many are we talking about?
I think at the minute, the last update I had was about a week and a half ago, and there were maybe 13, I think, in temporary workers. But if that's not right, I'll get back to you.
Okay. On this position where you said this lovely comment in extremis, it would be possible to make a further 5 million reduction to TransLink. Are you holding back on this just to save TransLink?
The Minister is aware that this 5 million can be taken from TransLink, but given that TransLink is already forecasting a loss this year of at least 10 million.
Well, why would that be? Why would anybody be worried about that? Sure, they're a private company.
It's the fact that next year the losses are likely to increase again, and then based on the draft budget, the information that we have and the analysis that we've done in liaison with the Chief Executive of TransLink indicates that their reserves will be all but exhausted by March 2016. So there is a concern and a risk associated with the going concern aspect of the company.
If you're saying here that the projected losses this year would be taken to 15 million if this 5 million was reduced, so that means the losses are 10.
Yeah, roughly about 10.
Where does that sit with the fact that this company is not allowed to make a loss? And all right, go on.
The company is required to break even over a 3-year period. So in terms of the 3-year period, I think at the end of last year they were sort of broadly break even. The year before that they had a profit. So over a 3-year period,
Well, where does the 3-year period cycle kick in? The next 3 years, does that start last year, this year?
it would be a rolling 3-year period.
So when did it end?
Well, I mean, you're in the third. If you take this year, you look at the last 2 years to see where you were at. So, at this point in time, they're probably, I think it was about 9 million profit, break even, and then loss. So, looking back, their loss is about 4 million more maybe than you would do looking at 3 years past. But in terms of the company, they're going to have to get to a position going forward, whereby they have a plan to break even. You know what I mean? They can't keep running at these losses. The Minister has obviously required them to run at a loss, an increased level of loss this year, in order that he could extract money and reduce the reserves. But it's sort of a balancing act, if you like, in that you can't keep doing this. There has to be a recovery plan in terms of TransLink. So
Well, that's very interesting.
in terms of sort of
What is the
2 years'
recovery
time.
plan? Can we see it?
Well, in terms of, you'll be aware obviously of the discussions that have taken place in relation to the budget 2015 and the proposals in that, in terms of if their funding is reduced next year by sort of the proposed 15 million that was in the draft consultation paper, the impact of that and the levers that they have in play to try and deal with the reduction in their
Is there
funding.
an actual recovery plan laid in front of the Minister?
There's not a recovery plan at this point in time. At this point in time, we have obviously the current year position for them, and we have sort of the propositions for next year.
What's the likelihood of a recovery plan being put in front of the Minister?
The Minister, whenever decisions are made, we're obviously in very uncharted territory, if you like, in terms of, this year the budget started as one thing and is finishing as something completely different.
Yeah.
Next year, the budget, you probably wouldn't have predicted where we're going to be next year. I don't know where the budget available to the Executive or available to us will be the year after. So it's very difficult to predict and give assumptions to TransLink to plan on, over these periods. So at the minute, their plan is obviously finishing off this year and the impacts, looking to next year to see how they can start to close this gap between their income, in terms of trying to get some measure of profitability, or not profitability, but some measure where they're moving back to break even. But the levers available to them are obviously the levers available to most businesses, in terms of trying to get to that position. So they will have to look at next year. Once next year is done, the year after that,
I don't spend an awful lot of time in TransLink,
have to look at that again.
to be fair to other members, but is this recovery plan that TransLink are you holding hands with them on, as usual, is that likely to result in redundancies in TransLink? Is that part of their recovery plan?
In terms of the plan for 15-16, yes, there are efficiency measures that they have identified that they will take forward as part of the proposals. As I say, no decisions have been made or endorsed by the Minister as yet, but they've put forward proposals, and that has included job reductions. They have job reductions to mostly at middle management in terms of what we've been advised so far.
Just finally, Chairman, if I may, is this intriguing comment on 15 of my pages anyhow? Work will be prioritised, etc. I will leave some minor defects unfixed. This will have a knock-on effect on public liability claims. I take it that you have, so I'm asking, what sort of money have you estimated to be set aside for compensation claims?
This year, the money set aside in this area is 4.5 million.
£4.5 million for liability claims.
Yes, that includes the legal costs and you know, specialist witnesses and things and whatever else.
When you say this year, sorry, what do you mean this year?
14-15. That's the 14-15 budget.
And you're expecting then that because of defects, minor defects, unfixed, that you could have £4.5 million spent on compensation?
Yes, but in terms of the spends this year, these things take time to resolve. So it's possibly the underlying event that led to the claim may have happened, you know, 12 months ago, start of the year, 18 months ago. There's always a lag.
What's the claims, let me say, 13-14?
I don't have the spend in 13-14, but in terms of the number of claims at the minute, there's 915 claims at the end of November.
How many?
915 claims in the, you know, being managed
I wonder
at the end of November.
if you would mind looking at that. When I asked the Minister this question yesterday, he said there was no liability claims, or there were no liability claims. And that's his answer that would be recorded in Hansard. I asked him, you know, what the money was involved. He didn't answer me direct about the £4.5 million, but he said there are no liabilities.
I will look at his answer. But certainly, I mean, public liability claims are
If he's made an error in his,
an ongoing
if he's
issue.
made an error in his answer to me in the House, to the House, you might ask him, would he correct it?
I'll check for you.
I think they will wait and see what the answer says. Yeah, okay. John?
Thanks, Chairperson. Deborah, I suppose like everyone else, wish you well in your new job. We certainly will miss you and your patience coming to explain to us the intricacies of financial affairs of that department that you're on. Even though I have a background in accountancy, I find it difficult sometimes to understand what's going on, but be patient with me. This £2 million for street lighting, when will the 300 street lights in Strabane go back on again? I heard about this morning.
That's the first of John of that one, if that's okay.
Okay. Will they be on over Christmas, or do we have to wait to the January monitoring, right?
Well, the position at the minute is that there are around 17,500 lights out right across Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And in August, we suspended the use of external contractors to repair outages, and they took about 3/4 of the resource we need came from external contractors. So we've got a limited resource left within our own operation and maintenance team. And what we're doing is we're spreading that resource right across Northern Ireland, and it's a much thinner resource, so therefore we have to prioritise. So we are dealing with, well, first of all, can I say that where there's any electrical safety issues, contractor resource wasn't suspended, so anything that poses an electrical safety hazard or a structural hazard is fixed by contractors. But with the resource that we have left in-house, we have to cut our cloth, so to speak, and we're dealing with group outages first, so that's large groups, so the town centre, residential areas, they're dealt with first, and then we deal with individual outages. And it's not that we're not going to get to them, we'll get to them. It takes a bit longer. It's not the service we would have normally provided in a fully funded situation, but that's the reality of where we are at the minute. So in relation to Strabane, will they be out? Will there be the 300 lights? I'm not sure. If they're a group, they'll be prioritised. If they're individual, they'll be in the pecking order and we'll get to them, but I can't give any sort of guarantee that all 300 will be fixed before Christmas.
So the lights may be on in Strabane, or they may not.
Some of them may be fixed, some of them may not be. It's a matter of...
John, it's not a good way to run a department, is it?
Well, as I said, it's not the service that we would normally provide. Can I also say that our staff in street lighting are under a lot of pressure at the minute. They take all the calls from members of the public who aren't very happy about it. The guys on the ground are doing their best with the resources they have. We're sort of fixing around a 30%, I think it is at the minute, of defects. So, you know, the gap between lights that are going out and lights that are being fixed, you know, is widening. But that's the position we're in, and we'll endeavour to do the best we can with the resources that we have.
Have you given up totally on the Harbour Commissioners extracting any money at all? Is that gone?
Well, it's still an issue that's discussed at the Budget Review Group in terms of the lead that we get from there. But there's clear legal advice that we cannot extract cash from the harbour. And unless there's some change in relation to that, you know, we're sort of stuck, if you like, in relation to that. I mean, the release of value does mean that the harbour is investing, for example, in foreign direct accommodation to attract inward investment, which, you know, if in context of maybe market failure, INI would have had to have invested. But at the minute, the legal advice is clear that we cannot extract cash from the harbour.
You see, they're creating 262,000 square feet of palatial office accommodation at a time when your department can't keep the street lights on in Strabane. And I keep saying Strabane, it's not even my constituency, but it's across the north. I mean, there's something badly wrong, isn't there?
Well, I think in terms of the 20 million, I mean, that was always a difficult issue. It was put into our budget as an income stream by the last executive, and the clear legal advice is that we can't get the cash out.
In terms of other, and this last question, Chairman, in terms of other capital requirements, am I to assume that if we ever sort out the Belfast Area Railway, that we won't hear at some future time when you're gone, of course, that there's no money for it?
In terms of the upgrade to the Phase 2 Coleraine Dairy, the Minister is prioritising the funding for that. So at the minute, in terms of the draft budget plans, the funding is included in 2015-16 plans for the Belfast to Derry, or the Derry Coleraine upgrade. So I wouldn't envisage somebody coming back and saying there's no funding. I don't anticipate that at all at this time.
It's very good to have that on record, and it's good that Hansard's here to record it, because I want to make sure that when eventually that is sorted out, that the people in the North West don't get another slap in the face, because they've had enough. Anyway, thanks and good luck to you.
Thanks, John. Declan?
I was actually planned to mention about the Harbours Commissioner release of value as well. Again, I was sort of questioning given the fact that there is no mechanism to extract this cash, I was sort of questioning the wisdom about the budget being set with that expectation in the first place. And is that 20 million included in the figure that we're told is being cut from the department?
You're absolutely right. I mean, whenever the budget was set for 2011-15, it was on the expectation that 40 million, 20 million last year and 20 million this year could be extracted from the harbour. But at the time that budget was set, you know, all of the legal advice and all of the work that's gone on in the 3-4 years since hadn't been done when the executive agreed to that, and wasn't around at the time in terms of who put the 20 million figure in. But you know, clearly with hindsight, that 20 million and 20 million, you know, if the legal advice had been in place, you wouldn't have put that in our budget at the outset. The upshot of it is that we are where we are. It's in our budget as an income line. If we don't get a bid for this, then our budget we will overshoot, you know, and potentially breach our budget, which is why, as I say, the Minister has been routinely raising this issue, this gap, if you like, with the Executive and at each monitoring round and in letters to the Finance Minister. And more recently, he met with the Finance Minister last week, and then he also raised it at the Executive last week. And we've had ongoing discussions with officials in DFP as to how to address this issue, and say that the Minister is recommending this bid go forward as part of January monitoring for the Executive to consider.
And is it true that Glaze, but is the 20 million included in the figure that the headline figure that we're told to be cut from the department?
In terms of the cut for 14-15?
Yeah.
No, in terms of the cut for 14-15, the £15 million cut, that's unrelated to the 20 million gap.
Yep.
The department is being put under pressure to try and absorb this extra 20 million, this harbour money, in order to avoid a breach of our control total. But we have already made savings this year of 19 million. We have identified another 1.8 million to mitigate the 20 million for the harbour. So, you know, there's 20.8 million pounds worth of savings we've made. In terms of the balance here of 18 million, yes, there's a possibility of taking 5 million off TransLink. But in terms of finding any more of it, if we have to find any more of it, we are down to the last vestiges of expenditure, if you like. And I mean, those last vestiges of expenditure are issues which would impact on public safety. So in terms of where we are and things that are not contractually committed at this time of the year, it is the grit. It is whatever supplies are going to our own operations and maintenance staff to enable them to do what work they are doing on the roads. It is the out of hours service. You know, it is the travel. But for us to actually stop spending in those areas would just mean that there would be no service for the next 4 months if we have to do that. But the Minister is clear at this point that, you know, these are public safety issues. So he is not minded at this stage for us to stop spending in those areas because of the public safety impacts, which means that unless we get this funding, then there's a real risk that we will breach our budget, if not a reality that we will breach our budget.
And Chair, just finally, one on the road structural maintenance, you made reference to the fact that if the 9 million isn't agreed by the end of January, the department's capacity to spend additional capital structural maintenance funds will reduce by £1 million. Could you explain why that?
In terms of putting the bid forward now, we won't. If we don't find out that we get the money until you know, say for some reason there was a delay, we're working on the basis that if we found out that we got the 9 million by the end of January, that we would be able to spend it. If we say we find out 2 weeks later, we would only be able to spend 7 million. So for every week's delay in letting us know that we have this money, our ability to spend it on the ground reduces.
That's great. Thanks.
So it does.
And Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going back to the harbour again. Do the executive accept that a mistake was made? I mean, you mentioned that it was previous. The last executive basically got it wrong. This money could be taken out now. It's my understanding, yes, there is legal evidence here, and there's UK laws that will not allow money to be taken from this harbour. So the continual bouncing back and forward, there seems to be more of a blockage in the DFP and in the executive that this issue will not go away. It's just not something you can sort of rub out. It was a mistake at the start because somebody somewhere said it could be done. Where did that come from? Who put forward the notion that money could be taken out of the harbour?
Stuart, are you able to answer that one?
I don't know exactly who said it was, but it was agreed between DFP and the executive ministers at the time that it would be included as part of the ongoing budget.
It does seem illogical that somebody would put forward a notion that we can take £20 million out of something when it was then known that it's legally impossible, which then causes the problems that we face today. But I'll leave that, Chair, because I'm not going to resolve it by waving the magic wand. I'm going to go back now to the public liability issues. You say 4.5 million has been set aside. How much has been set aside in the previous 3 years? Because clearly there's always been liability claims, and particularly with roads, particularly with potholes and other issues involving DRD. It's one of those areas where there would be quite a lot compared to maybe some other departments. So what sort of figures have been set aside in other years?
I don't have the exact figures with me, and I'm only working from memory here, but approximately about 4 million a year. But I mean, if that's out by any significant ballpark, but we can give you the figures.
So you're setting aside 4 million a year. This year, setting aside 4.5 million. It's a standard figure because you always expect a certain amount of claims. do we know, and Mr McNary made reference here to previous claims, do we know what we've paid, for example, in the last 3 years? And if we don't, could we have an indication of what has been paid out?
We can get that for you. We can get that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Just one last question, Deborah. In terms of TransLink protecting, I think in 2015, 2016 they have a loss, and we're told that there are an increase in passenger numbers. And how does that come about?
In terms of in the current year, obviously, the minister had frozen fares. You know, the fares have been frozen, so because the numbers have gone up. But in terms of the increase in numbers, there is evidence that you know, concessionary fares have increased as well. So in terms of the overall costs, the costs are increasing as well with inflation and so on, and because, for example, we've expanded the services on some of the rail networks in recent years, so costs have gone up. So overall, in terms of their budget, you know, just with all of those things going into the mix, they have a loss this year, you know, because the income is not sufficient to cover their costs, and we are not providing the same level of funding to them this year. The next year, as I say, the funding that we will provide to them, the proposition is that will be reduced by 15 million, although concessionary fares will be fully funded. So in terms of them looking at all of the levers that they have in play to try and get them back on a track to close the gap, then they are obviously factoring into the mix you know, any fare increases that they may be able to apply. They're also factoring in any increases in passenger numbers, and then you know, the impacts of that on their overall baseline, as well as the cost increases. I mean, for example, next year, one of the costs that is liable to increase, which is unavoidable for them, is their rates, which I believe would go up by 2 million next year. So, you know, there's lots of levers at play in terms of their overall financial position, and they have to, you know, not only if we're reducing our funding, their funding by 15 million, they have to rein that back somehow or other. Then, you know, there's other things like rates coming in at £2 million extra, and again, they're going to have to do more to cover that as well. So, you know, there's all sorts of levers at play in relation to the various finances.
Surely you're saying about the rates, but with the reduction in fuel, could they not offset that?
Well, that's what they'll be looking at it in terms of the overall position, and in terms of trying to come up with a balance. And in terms of the proposals for next year, they have proposals. We talked about reductions in staff numbers, so those are for their first level of proposals. In terms of fares, that's something that they're liaising closely with the minister on, in terms of what he may be prepared or not prepared to approve in relation to fares. They're also looking at reorganising some of their engineering facilities, and then obviously there's the areas where really the minister doesn't want to go, which are the bus routes and the service routes. And, you know, in order of working your way through, those are the ones that if you can avoid it, you will avoid it, you know, in terms of trying to
David, did you want to come out?
If you remind, and thank you. I mean, one day we'll all find out how TransLink does it. It's the biggest mystery, you know. I think it circulates around this committee. On the concessionary fares, if concessionary fares were taken out of this year's mix, how would TransLink perform?
if we didn't fund them. If the funding that we're providing to TransLink this year for concessionary fares is 40 million. So if they didn't have any concessionary fares funding this year, and they were still obliged to carry cardholders,
No, just if they didn't...
If they didn't get 40 million, then if they didn't get 40 million of funding, then their loss would go up to 50 million.
Well, I've got to ask the question, how on earth are we supporting a company that basically, right, in any other business, the auditors and the accountants would be within their right to report this company for not being able to perform as a limited company should. I mean, the 40 million, is a gift.
The 40 million, in terms of the 40 million is a subsidy to the traveller. Basically, it's a subsidy to the traveller. It also applies to private operators. There's some...
I understand. I don't want to... They get 40 million, and what you've said is they didn't get the 40 million, they'd be 50 million in the red. I mean, that's just bigger.
And they also, they obviously also get funding streams. They have the ordinary fare paying customers. They have the concessionary fare customers who are provided with that, scheme by the executive. And obviously, if more people are travelling, there's an ageing population, so more people, that's why the cost of the concessionary fares, usage is going up. But equally, they have other funding streams in terms of, providing other services, including, school transport and things. So, if you take any of those funding streams away, then if you don't do anything else to reduce your costs, they're going to have a bigger loss.
Well,
But
when
the
I
subsidy for
retire,
the-
I'm going to set up a transport company for buses, and I'm going to be knocking, well, you won't be in the door maybe, but I'm going to be knocking on the door and saying, can I have all this money? Because you don't need to go to a bank, you only need to go to the Department of Finance and say, will you bail me out every year? I see you're smiling, Deborah, so on that note, we'll end.
Okay, that's all members. And as it's your last presentation, on behalf of the committee, I wish you well in your new role, Deborah, and thanks for all the presentations that you did give in front of us in the last number of years. Okay, thank you. So.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Don't say on the health, on promotion.
Going to sort it out.
Go back. Go back to the start. Yeah.
Members, we're going to go back to the beginning. David, is setting up that company? You and John?
It's my accountant here, I'm just appointing him.
Right, we're going to go back.
He
because
doesn't take risks.
We're heading the numbers.
All right, what about the numbers now? We're like translating on the numbers.
Agenda item 2, Chairperson's business. Refer members to page 4 of the table packed for the response to the Committee of Finance and Personnel regarding the draft budget 2015-16. What do we do with that?
Members to note.
And that's just a note, members. Item 3, draft minutes of the meeting of the 3rd of December 2014 and the 8th of December 2014. Refer members to page 6 of the minutes of the committee meeting. Ask members to agree these and approve and sign them. It's 2 sets.
2 sets, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, refer members to page 11 of the table papers packed for the minutes of the committee. We've done that. Item 4, correspondence. Remind members the correspondence is page 11. Unless they have any objections or issues to raise, those items marked with the suggestions approach to note shall simply be noted, and I'll ask the clerk to brief the committee on the correspondence.
Chairperson, I appreciate their to note, but can we comment on them?
Yeah.
And we've been told that there's an appointment of a chair to Northern Ireland Transport Holding Company. Now, I would want to make it clear, nothing personal, but it's pretty clear to me over the last year that the department needs to seriously look at the qualifications, ability, enthusiasm of those who are serving on the Northern Ireland Transport Company, because we know as a committee that questions that should have been asked at an early stage as to the difficulties the Belfast Ferry Railway ran into were not asked. And it's clear from the minutes of those meetings that apart from reporting the jollies and the other things, that there's very little in terms of detailed investigative inquiries into what's going on. So no reflection on the current chairman who may be reappointed, and he may be among the best, I don't know. But it's clear to me that the Transport Holding Company is full of serial directors who are in multiple organisations all over the place. And the department must at this stage realise that that is no way to be managing millions of pounds of public money to provide services to the public. And we have, I think, a battlefield of scars of where difficulties could have been avoided if the right people had been there with the commitment and the enthusiasm to ask the questions. Didn't do it. So, Chairperson, I don't know if I'm speaking for myself. I don't think so. It's clear to me that somebody at this stage needs to say this committee is focusing on the performance of the people who are running the Quangos that David talked so passionately about earlier. We're talking about TransLink. It really cannot go on that people breeze in 1 or 2 days a week to a meeting and have some superficial discussion about what's going on, and then the whole thing goes bottom up. So I'm using this opportunity for the appointment of the chair simply to raise that. Nothing personal against this man.
Could I ask, Chair, if he is John suggesting that perhaps what needs to happen is a review
Absolutely.
of the appointments panel and the people who are appointed to it, the worthies that we all know about that just go on a circuit. And maybe if it was your view and the view of the committee, we might channel that upwards, requesting such a thing from this committee. If that was his proposal, I would certainly second it. I'd shake a few people up.
Chairperson, I don't for one moment question the ability of anybody in this committee. I think everybody has performed exceptionally well and has had a lot of pain and asked a lot of questions. But, you know, if there's an organisation at a higher level that's not performing, then our endeavours are wasted. And again, I want to make it clear, this is no reflection on the Minister who inherited the department. On the contrary, I suspect he might well agree with what I'm saying. It cannot go on, and there must be a review. And
Just for clarification, I thought we were on page 12 dealing with the correspondence. Maybe I'm getting lost here. I don't see any correspondence related to this, or are we in another sector?
There's correspondence in table papers.
Yeah, right, sure. Yeah, but I thought at the minute, and maybe I'm wrong again, page 12 that we were dealing with this item first, or are we going to be dealing with both table papers and this?
All correspondence.
The members making comment on a...
No, just for me to understand where I'm at, because I want to comment on the correspondence that we did get as well.
Yeah.
Because clearly the correspondence that we got, I understood to be confidential, and then the next day it was in the papers. So I want to know where we are with that. So whenever we have a confidentiality issue, I want that questioned as well.
Yeah.
Because whenever Gavin, I think, sent the thing out, we were reminded the papers were confidential.
Chairperson, we now seem to have two issues, and that's making
I
it
just
very
want to
difficult.
address Ross's first, John. I think it has been stressed by the previous chairpersons that confidentiality should be adhered to at all times. Now, it may not be, but that has been the directive from the previous chairs, Ross, and that's all I can say. Back to you, John.
Chairperson, just to clarify,
I'll catch up.
Just to clarify for us the issue I raised, we've got a letter here from the department saying that there's an appointment of a chair coming up in June. And that's my opportunity, I'd hoped, and you've been very good, Chairperson, on allowing me to ventilate a concern about appointments. End of story. Now, the confidentiality thing is obviously must be a separate issue, because I don't see how it's linked to this. But in terms of confidentiality, I believe as a person of this committee, everyone should pay me the respect and other people the respect of keeping information confidential and not to be picking it up in a local paper, because very often the information sent out is not accurate. But that's a different issue, Ross. I don't know how that got mixed up.
It's my fault. Sorry, it's the two papers have baffled me, and it's my fault.
I'll just let Clerk in and just clarify it.
There's members have just... the chair has allowed members to comment on items of correspondence, but they aren't related in the two comments that the members have made. The correspondence from the department regarding the queries in the budget 2015-16, we still are awaiting some legal advice in respect of that. If members are content then to continue with the other correspondence.
Yeah.
There's correspondence from the department regarding the programme for government mid-year performance monitoring. Members may wish to note that as part of this that the Coleraine to Londonderry Phase 2 project is still being shown as being online. Correspondence from the department regarding an additional clause to the current or in the current water bill. There's correspondence from residents of the Dromore Road area in Omagh regarding street lights. And members have already referred to correspondence from the department regarding the process to appoint a chair to the holding company.
Are members content to note items marked accordingly?
Yeah.
Members content to forward correspondence from residents in Omagh to the department for comment?
Chair, just a quick comment in relation to that. The residents from the Dromore Road were actually here. I met them that day as well when they were en route to the Minister.
Yeah.
Certainly I agree with the letters going forward, but they have been here and they have made the representation.
Are members content that they write to the department in response to John's comments earlier?
And I support John's comment, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we jump to then item 6, the next presentation at page 26. Representatives of the Belfast taxis. You get a taxi, Barry? Here, a taxi.
The meter's still running here, you better be careful.
Where's the driver? You can't get private to get a driver.
Any snow up your end over, David? No?
Not yet.
We're still recording.
Santa can come by a quad, but if there's no snow,
Just adjourn for 5 minutes.
We're going to adjourn for a couple of minutes, members.
Room 21.
Okay, thanks for coming to the committee. And then you have Kieran Riley, Graham Fisher and Jerry Diver. And you have within 10 minutes to give a presentation, then open yourselves open to questions. Okay, you're leading off, Kieran.
Thanks. First of all, I want to thank you for having us here today. We're representatives of Belfast public hire taxi drivers in the city centre. There would be 444 public hire licensed wheelchair accessible taxis in the centre, and we cover all areas, particularly the Sandy Road, the Donegal Road, Donegal Pass areas. Whereas we estimate that we carry 50,000 people per week. Now that's women and children, prams, wheelchairs, whatever, to the surrounding areas. Our customers would tell us that because of the locations of these areas, that it's actually cheaper for us, or for them, to get into our taxis than it is to do the buses. Okay? Now we're regulated by the DOE, but our ranks are regulated by the DRD. And there seems to be a bit of a reluctance between the two departments to work together to enhance the public hire industry. There's 127 listed spaces in Belfast city centre for public hire drivers, for public hire taxi drivers. There's only 24, which are 24 hours per day. The main rank in the Belfast city centre has 6 spaces. Gentlemen, we regularly have 40 drivers trying to squeeze in the spaces of 6. You can understand the congestion problems and the problems that the city centre experiences. There's also an island that's right beside our main rank at the City Hall, and it's kind of used as a springboard for people to run across from one side of the City Hall to the other. We find that this is extremely dangerous to the general public. because there's no barriers and stuff. There's another rank at Amelia Street. There's 7 spaces on it, yet we have 30 drivers that regularly use it. And again, this is mass overcrowding, and it causes all sorts of problems. We have another rank in Glengall Street with similar problems. We have, I think there's 8 or 9 spaces on it, and we have up to 40 drivers. So we're trying to squeeze in at least 150 drivers per day in the ranks that have only got spaces for 24. In May 2000, DRD proposed that there would be 7 new ranks operating 24 hours a day in Belfast, 10 new ranks operating from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m, that there would be 8 extensions to existing ranks. These proposals were put in front of Belfast City Council in May of 2010. Some 4 years later, we have still not got a response back about these proposals. There has been numbers of reviews carried out on behalf of DOE and I, the review of the taxis in 2011, which made recommendations. One of the recommendations, or several of the recommendations, were public hire taxi ranks to be enhanced, better signage so that customers were aware of public ranks and where they were available, ranks to be placed in better locations so that they were easily accessible to the consumer rather than placed in road layout, existing ranks to be enlarged. Gentlemen, we are an integral part of the Belfast city centre. We're there to provide a service, and we feel that we're an integral part of the Belfast transport system. Yet we feel that we're being neglected. We're being passed all the time. In the years that we've been in the city centre, there's been no major development as far as public hire ranks. Public hire taxi drivers, Belfast is bursting capacity with drivers who want to apply their work, and we don't have the facilities. Now, we want to encourage our drivers to move forward in the 21st century. We want to modernise the fleet. We want to provide a very good service to our customers. But unless we have the facilities to do that, we can't. So that's why we're here. We're here to ask for your help. We need to get changes. There seems to be a reluctance within the DRD and the DOE to accommodate us. And we think that they're cozying up to the bigger business. Now, we're prepared to ask questions to the floor, Sean, if you don't mind.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. I'm going to open it up the floor first, and I'll David.
I'm very much on to this. I was in Belfast not too long ago, and I could see the difficulties that these men are having. I'd just like to make a comment first. I personally support the request that they're putting in front of the committee, and perhaps, Chairman, we could look at how we would advance that request. It does seem to me that there has been a dragging in terms of, correct me if I'm wrong, a consultation in April 2010 and a comment in our briefing that the DRD is currently considering the potential of newer extended taxi ranks, etc., but there has been no legislation or nothing brought forward to advance that. Could I ask, gentlemen, you're very, very welcome. Could I ask, can you define actually how many extra ranks you believe would be required to enhance the public service? Could you indicate where you think these might happen? And could you perhaps, and I think this is a key issue, in terms of disabled people, the difficulties that they certainly have told me, and what your experience is with disabled people, where they're wanting to get close and they have a basic right to get close to a venue they want to go to, how that difficulty affects you in terms of being able to deliver those people to where they want to go, where you really there's no drop-off place, if you like, or no legal drop-off place.
Thanks for your question, David. Up until about 10 days ago, Belfast public hire black taxis were excluded totally from Belfast city centre. There's a pedestrianised area. It's the hangover from the conflict as such, where we used to have the Ring of Steel round the centre. It's still in your head, it's still there, because Belfast Public Tire were excluded when the Ring of Steel went up, and we've never been permitted back in again. At the present time, thanks to yourselves...
What happened 10 days ago?
Thanks to yourself, David, with discussions between PSNI, BCM and DRD, there's a trial going on in Royal Avenue, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. that Belfast Public Hire will be permitted to drop off or pick up. That's a limited service as such, that we're not permitted to actually apply for hire in Royal Avenue. It's to pick up, pre-book or drop off. To the rest of the city centre, if we have a wheelchair or a disabled customer who needs dropped off at the front door of Eason's or Marks and Spencer's, sorry, we can't do it. We're not allowed inside the city centre, per se. And vice versa, if we have a regular customer who may come to the rank and say, my granny or my brother needs lifted outside the boots, can you lift them? No. They have to make their way to this. They have to make their way to the...
Can I add to that, David?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Can I add to that? Ranks are important to be strategically placed. If you put a rank somewhere in a dead end, people don't know where they are. Wheelchair accessible, or people with wheelchairs, women with kids, need to have access to our ranks. There's no sense in putting them in the corner of the way where they're no good to anybody. We have them and have them in strategic places. And the problem has been that DRD has excluded us from these places. We are an integral part of the city centre. We provide a great service, but yet we seem to be excluded. There's no sense in putting us anywhere other than the routes. We need parts where there's people on foot. You know, when you see the woman with the pram and the kids, and we're helping them in and out, they have to be strategically placed, you understand?
I do, yeah.
You know. Okay.
David, are you
But
finished?
just on the
qualified, were you
extra
asked?
ranks,
Yeah,
where
were
you
you
want
co-
those,
we
or
asked those.
where you might want them,
The
the numbers?
I think that the priority would be Castle Court Shopping Centre, all 3 exits or entrances as such. So we're talking Gresham Street, Barry Street and Royal Avenue. If possible, within the pedestrianised area, Castle Place, so I'm led to believe 30 years ago was a taxi rank. That's where the taxis used to sit. So Castle Place facing Primark, there's coaches now sitting there. By sitting there, you would attract, shall we say, passing trade as such that people don't have to hoof from the whole length of Castle Court to the City Hall, or vice versa. You've taxi rank. The taxi ranks would actually break up the fleet and disperse the overflow at the City Hall, so the driver has a choice or an opportunity to try, to make his way around the city centre, knowing that he's going to actually get into the city centre.
Bridge Street and High Street would probably be high on our list.
Just so I mean, I welcome the coaches coming into Belfast. They're bringing people in. They're going to spend money. They're accessing hotels, etc., etc. Are there any? I mean, I find it incredible that in a cosmopolitan city like Belfast, big buzz on tourism, and particularly at this time of year, it's so different to nearly every other city that I would go to, with the restrictions. Is there any comment, feedback from the passenger, say the tourist, when you say, pick them up and can you take me to such and such a place?
You see in this we have signage, first of all, so that the tourists know exactly where we are. But now, so our signage is that there, and that's what it says, public hire taxi drivers. There's no signage in the city centre at all. And again, the visitors, overseas visitors are coming in, they're just simply walking around in circles until they get the fine. It's a bit of a potluck situation, So we need to get into the city centres. We need to get into the places where we need, big business, I think we would enhance big business, simply because of the people coming out of the big business with their shopping and getting straight into a taxi and getting home. Remember, we don't have, not everybody has the facilities of cars, women and kids, prams, wheelchairs, whatever. So will they use us? We're the first point of call,
I just think all those are valid points, but the issue certainly brought to me about disabled people, wheelchair users, is something that we really should look at.
Yeah, fine, David, is that good?
That's fine, thank you,
Yeah,
Chairman.
Thank you. Declan?
Chair, thank you, and I think it goes without saying that, very supportive of what you're saying, because obviously I'm not from the city, but I do be there quite often, and I appreciate that yourselves play a huge role in moving people about the place, and that's essential for business and for the free flow of the city. And I think it's appalling that they've been dragging their heels now for 4 years in terms of implementing those measures. And what has been your most recent contact with DRD in relation to the matter?
Right. In November 2013, representatives of Belfast Public Hire Taxi Drivers had a meeting with Minister Kennedy and representatives of DRD, Transport NI, I think they call themselves now, 2 members of their, I would assume, management of DRD. We had a, shall we say, frank and honest discussion about the state of ranks and the state of public hire in Belfast. They said they'd take it on board and further meetings would happen. In March of 14, which is 10 months ago, 2 representatives of Belfast Public Hire Taxis went to Hydebank, had a meeting. We made proposals, discussed the proposals. We were left in no uncertain terms. And an analogy would be like we would be the taxi drivers, but the DRD management knew better than we did what taxi drivers needed. It was this, I don't call it arrogance, but it was, we know better than you. So since then, in July, there was a letter sent to Belfast Public Hire Taxi Drivers saying that DRD were, I think, consulting about taxi ranks, and that's the end of conversation. Our written conversation, I have rung DRD Hydebank, I think 6 times, and the phone won't be answered. They're now refusing to take phone calls. So we've been cast adrift, or as I like to say, they're hoping that we wither on the vine.
Well, Chair, I'm hoping then that we've had add weight to your calls. Certainly, I'd be very concerned about the disability aspect of it, because certainly, we hear a lot about Section 75 and the importance of promoting equal opportunity amongst people who have disability and those who don't. And this would be actually inhibiting use and providing that equality of opportunity. So I certainly would be very supportive of it.
See, the problem for us is we're trying to provide a service. If we don't have the tools to provide it, then there's no service there. We would invite this committee, or certain members of this committee, to come round with us. We'll provide a bus. Take each gentleman down into the city centre and experience the problems that we're having, because they'll see it for first hand. It'll only take an hour and a half. You'll see the overcrowding in the ranks. You'll see the frustrations the taxi men have. But you'll also see the problems that the customers have in accessing our ranks. Our ranks are at the outskirts, and they're small in numbers. So,
can I just add there, all our taxis are wheelchair accessible, every one of them, but our ranks just unfortunately aren't. They're just not up to the standard required for wheelchair access.
Okay, John?
Chairperson, thanks for the opportunity. I might take you up on your offer,
be a pleasure, John.
because I'm not.
Are you shopping to do, John, yet?
You'll have to walk the marches on your own.
If I'm in Belfast, I come up on the train and that's it. But I wasn't over the weekend and used taxis over the 3 days. And I wasn't particularly looking out for anything, but there they've got all forms of transport. And I didn't pick up any conflict at all. I mean, are you an oppressed people? And I don't mean that flippantly, I mean it seriously, because you have an opportunity this morning to tell us everything you know. And it really amazed me, Jerry, that you are still inhibited by things that happened in the distant past that we want to try and behind us. That's truly amazing. So, your opportunities here this morning to inform people like myself who, unlike David, are not well informed. What is going on that transport can't be integrated, can't coexist, And, you know, I see it breaking out occasionally on the hop-on, hop-off buses where they have different colours for different areas, and we have black taxis and we have other taxis, and the one taxi we don't seem to have are yellow taxis, which are all over the world. What's wrong?
Well, you see, Belfast is very unique too. Because see, if people come in from off the boats, the first port of contact is us.
Yes.
We take them up the Shankill, the Falls, we do the tours, we take them to the shopping centres, we take them up to the Giant's Causeway. We are an integral part of Belfast, very important, and yet we seem to be treated as subordinates. We don't seem to be getting the fair crack of it.
I imagine if the Northern Ireland, and maybe digressing a bit here, if the Northern Ireland Tours Board were to evaluate the people who really sell Belfast, it's probably the taxi drivers.
Absolutely.
So I want you to leave here today knowing that somebody's actually going to help you, because you've come here before and it didn't happen. What do we need to do to give you your fair share of the whole integrated public transport? Is it just about taxis? Imagine you don't want 40 taxis in one spot at the same time.
Spread is about, and we'll provide Belfast with the cover that it deserves.
Yeah.
It's dead simple. But you can't be sat in this in their corner where there's no bodies. And that's what the RD have tried to do. They put us in rank down in Chichester Street. Gentlemen, if I sat in Chichester Street at 8 o'clock this morning and I sat at 6 o'clock tonight, I would get 1 or 2 jobs. It doesn't put bread on my table. They're dead ranks. And Belfast is littered with dead ranks that are not fit for purpose. And that's the problem. And then with the DRD, and try to say this, is you've got 124. 124 is no good unless they're fully operative. Understand?
Sorry, Sean, you may have a copy of the Belfast City Council Development Committee from 2010, May or the like. There's a sheet in it. If you want, I'll leave this or leave as many of these as I can. We have broken down the 127 spaces for taxis in Belfast. Out of the 127, when you examine it, there are actually 24 that operate 24 hours a day. There are taxi ranks on this that no longer exist because the places where the taxi rank is has been redeveloped, and they're still counting those. So I don't know. I don't like this turn around and say, oh, they're guilty of this or they're guilty of that. I think what has happened with DRD or Transport NI, they've become enamored, or they've become the Belfast Metropolitan Plan or the Rapid Transport Plan has overtaken everything, and everything else has been shipped to the side, and that is of no use to us. That's their attitude. Whereas, you know, if we are an integral part of the don't forget, 10 o'clock at night, bus services in Belfast almost grind to a halt. People, our customers, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock on a Wednesday night, make their way to the City Hall to get home.
Yeah.
You know, the bus services just went, bye, you're on your own. We're still there. And Belfast public hire taxis literally do 24-hour cover in that city centre, 7 days a week.
Before bringing John in, I think, will the committee agree with me here? We take up the invitation that was
It's not a problem.
offered by...
In January or February, when this committee, you call it, we will provide a service. We will come up here with a taxi bus. We'll take these gentlemen into the town. We'll drive you around. You'll see it for yourselves firsthand. David, you've been there, you've seen it.
Yeah.
You experienced the thing. We will take you in through and show you, and you can make your minds up yourselves. We don't have to sell it.
It's a good
That would be very useful.
committee agreement.
Agreed.
Yeah. John,
£8 minimum fare chance now.
did you want
Charge to the
are you
speaker.
finished?
Thanks, Chairperson. Just to say, you know, there's 11 on the committee. Don't assume everybody knows the whole story.
Yeah.
But certainly do want to know it. And it does make me angry because I'm around this place 16 years.
Yep.
You really, at this stage, shouldn't have to be coming here pointing out what seems to be obvious issues that should have been addressed a long time ago. I have an open mind.
Okay, thanks, John. Ross.
Well, firstly, I'm from Omagh, so
Yep.
country boy at heart.
Country boy.
As you
Dead
can-
on. Nothing wrong with that.
As you can tell by looking at me.
Nothing wrong with that.
You should see the taxi he drives.
You can see the car that is driven before me. I'm looking at the pictures here. 2 Donegal Square East is where I used to be based 100 years ago. And I remember the taxis used to be parked in the front of that, the old part of Sharon's house, opposite City Hall. The space it does appear foolish, some of the comments that have been sort of made, and no support seems to have been given. I have been in one of these white taxis. I did the tour of the peace lines we were sent up from Moma District Council. I was the only one that went right enough, but there you go, it was very interesting. I am very impressed by the fact, the number of taxis that you have, and that they're 100% disabled friendly. I think there'll be very few cities that could say that is the case. My mother is in her 80s, and I've had difficulty getting in and out of taxis in the past.
Yep.
So that is all positive. 444 licensed taxi drivers. I'm sorry I missed the start of your presentation. How many actual taxis are there? Licensed taxis as well?
404. We have 44. We have a fleet of 444.
Okay.
Now, if your mother was to get into a taxi and she was to go from A to B, we'll charge her £3. If you were to get into the same taxi and go to the A to B, we'll charge you £3. We will not discriminate whether your mum's in a wheelchair or whether she's able-bodied. We are level playing field with us, so there's no difference for us at all, and that's the importance that we say this. You know what I mean?
I look forward to this trip down.
Absolutely.
To see the thing, because seeing is believing.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that would be the most positive step that we can take.
Yeah.
And again, based on what I have heard, I certainly would support your endeavours.
Okay, and just a few added questions, man, and I have been down myself and I've seen the difficulties and the dangers in and around the City Hall. In terms of the Belfast on the Move, how do you think it has impacted on you? Has it disenfranchised you, or...?
Discriminated against us.
Right.
We never got as much as a look in with any of the departments. They put bus lanes straight down the side of our ranks. They're proposing to put cameras, and we are not objecting to cameras, by the way, gentlemen. We're happy enough with them there. But the 4 cameras that they're proposing, they're putting them beside us, which means that our members are going to be getting fixed penalties every time we slow down or stop at these ranks. Our ranks are bursting. We need to look at the bigger plan, and we need to be incorporated in it. I mean, we carry 50,000 people per week. That's a big amount of numbers. We need to be incorporated in these plans. Would that be correct?
Yeah, we need to spread the ranks out round the centre rather than have them at the front of the City Hall, just at the front of the City Hall. It needs to be spread out totally around the centre at the different areas, because the congestion that is caused is it's not.
Yeah, but just on that, with the bus lanes and Belfast on the Move, would that not give you greater ability to move more passengers?
You see, one of the things and it came up this morning, somebody made a comment about taxis on the bus lanes. Do you know that there's quite a few of our taxis that take kids to school in the mornings, handicapped kids, with their childminders and stuff? So we need the bus lanes in the mornings to take the kids to school, because the transportation system for the Educational Library Board isn't particularly up to scratch. Our boys are out every morning on the bus lanes. So the bus lanes are important for us to get them kids to school in the mornings. You understand? Because we're wheelchair accessible. So we provide this important service to the community, to the wider community, just not in inner Belfast. So we should be included in any of the proposals. Now, the Belfast Christmas tree lights went on this year, gentlemen. The signs in Belfast are all that size. No matter where you'll go, it's a taxi sign that size. Do you know that we got Mr. I think it's Rooney,
Jerry Copeland.
Yeah, from the Belfast City Council, and he got us 2 or 3 big massive taxi signs, and we put them up, and we started to funnel the people in. Now, why can that happen? Why can we not have big taxi signs all around the place? Didn't happen.
Sorry to go back. With Kieran mentioned the taxi signs, I met a manager from DRD Road Services, or Transport NI. His name was, I think his name was Chambers. I met him actually in Belfast City Centre. And he, hello. So I brought him across the road to the City Hall and said, right, Norman, this is the sign that advertises the biggest taxi rank in Belfast. And literally it's this size. So I said, why can we not get larger signs? To show this is a taxi rank. It's just not a place where taxis park. He said, well, that's all we are actually asked to provide, and walked away.
Well, are there any other members who wish to ask any questions? On that, I think you have, as you have seen yourselves here, quite amount of support from this committee.
you.
And we look forward to going down and, as Ross said himself, seeing's believing. And we'll do all we can to see that the issues are resolved. And I want to thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Could
All
I-
we're looking for is just your help and support. We're not asking, all we're asking for is a fair cracking whip, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's all we're asking for.
Sorry,
Okay.
could I, just, sorry, Sean, for interrupting. Could I ask a question before I go, or before we go? If you progress, do you talk to DRD Transport NI about the problems that we're having? And can you influence their attitude towards us so that if we do re-engage with them to go for talks, we're actually on a level playing field. We're actually equals rather than being subjects.
Yeah, well, I think what we'll do is we'll try and arrange a trip as early available opportunity, and then as a committee, we will discuss what is the best way forward to assist you in resolving the difficulties.
Thanks very much.
Okay, man,
Thank you,
thank you.
gentlemen, ladies. Oh, sorry, folks. It's not a meal through this bank. Thank you.
And where are we? Yeah. But, just to finish off, agenda item 8, page 38 of the pack. Okay. Inform members they have been provided with papers in relation to EU matters.
Noted.
To note. No. Item 8, Donaghadee Harbour. I think that's in your area, David. Of a harbour undertaking order NA 215 from members to page 44 of the pack. 4 members of the department have consulted with the relevant stakeholders in relation to this. No issues or concerns have been raised. Are members content with the merits of the policy proposal?
Yeah.
Item 9, any other business? No. Happy Christmas. That's just before I got in. Due to the closure of Parliament over the Christmas period, acts for the first meeting back issue will be Monday the 5th, 2:15. And all I can do on behalf of the Vice Chair is wish everybody a Happy New Year.
And the same to yourself.
And the date of the next meeting is Wednesday the 7th, 2:15.
That's
Because I'm still-
If you get stuck.
2015.